Hey guys, this is episode 5. I'm going to be removing the shock brace from between the two new rear frame rails. I literally just got done replacing the passenger side rear frame rail, as you can see it over there. Every issue I had before on the driver's side I had on the passenger side, so it went a lot quicker because I knew what to do. So they're both in. A couple things here. As you can see, I added a couple braces. This guy here, and same thing on the other side, because with the new rail, it wants to sit like this. So over towards the center of the car, and I needed to maintain the measurements per the Ford service manual. So I got those set, and then I tack welded them above. And then since I know I'm going to be removing the drops, I have to remove those tack welds. So I put these in to help just keep the correct geometry of the car. So for what I'm going to be doing next, as I said, I'm removing the shock brace going across. I'm going to clean up the interior of it, or the inside of it, and then prime it and everything just so it lasts. And then since I know I'm doing the Total Control Products 4-link rear suspension, it's required to weld. It's kind of hard to see on the light here. Require you to weld around this seam all the way around it. So I'll use the TIG welder and do that. And then I'll get it all cleaned up and then back on in the correct spot. So as well as right after that, I'm going to be pulling out the transition pan and cleaning it up as well and doing some repairs and then dropping it back in. Then I know that those two are good to go and they're clean and ready. So a lot of rust under here, but all the other metal's getting replaced. So these two pieces should be good to go afterwards and nice and clean. So I'm going to get started with that now, and then and yeah, that'll be good. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so I just got some spot welds I need to drill out. So first thing I'm going to do is going to measure the shock brace itself to make sure I can put it back in its correct location. And then I got all the spot welds that I need to go through here. There's a bunch that go through right through here, as you can see, one's right here, and then on top as well on the other side. And then since I've already got it undone from the rear frame rails, it should just pop right out, so it shouldn't take me long to do this at all. I do want to keep the metal, so I'm not going to drill all the way through. I'm just going to go ahead and just remove the top part of the spot weld here, leaving the shock mount alone, and then that'll allow me to be able to weld right back to it. So I'm going to go ahead and reveal all these and then go ahead and get started on drilling them out. Okay, I got all the spot welds drilled out, as you see right there. So it's kind of hard to measure where this the shock brace is supposed to be in relation to the car. So I'm not being lazy, at least I don't think I am. But what I did is I drilled let's see here, can I see it right there? A 1/2 inch, or excuse me, a 3/8 hole straight down through the center, because what really matters here is locating it back to center. And then right next to it, right there, is a self-tapping screw hole, and I did the same thing right there, and then sorry about the light, right there as well. So that is triangulate the brace back into position. So it's important to make sure that it's centered on the car as best as possible, and that it's supporting up in here. So this will allow me to get up in there, repair all that, make sure it fits snug and lines right back up where it was. All right, cool. So I'm gonna get to popping this out and then cleaning it up. Hey guys, so in trying to separate these panels, I just wanted to show you one thing. The angles are kind of awkward. It hasn't been too tough. I actually got half of it separated already in the past 10 minutes. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But if we've got these holes here, if you get one of these, you can get under here. Kind of block the light there. You can get under there and hammer those through at all kinds of angles. And you can do the top ones and the bottoms. You can go down through here as well. So if you're trying to separate those panels, that helps out a lot. And then you got to crawl underneath. Crawl underneath Make sure I can see what I'm looking at here. And then you can't go dead on because you can't get the angle, but if you go in on this angle or a side angle like this, you get your hammer up there and knock it. As you can see, maybe see, a lot of it's separated already. Just gotta do the other half. So, should be out within 5 minutes. And it's out. So, once I got all the spot welds drilled, it was about 15-20 minutes of actual pounding with the hammer and a pry bar. You see it there. That's what she looks like without it. So yeah, I'll be able to treat that. Now it's not too rusted, just surface rust. But I'm gonna be pulling that off, like I said, and I'll clean all that up. So I'm gonna actually get to treating this next. So you can see a little bit of rust on the inside. It's still a good piece. And I should have no problem relocating it. So I'll be able to get these tabs and everything as close to the frame rail, inner frame rail here, as best I can. And that way they're a tight fit. And then when I pull off the top of the transition pan, I'll be able to get in and weld them. So it'll get put in place, and then I'll plug weld these back in place. So I got to do a little repair on there. They got crazy with the welder, or their spot welder, and they're a little far on the inside. So I'm going to patch those up and then move the holes more towards the outside, so they grab more of the frame rail. But not a bad piece for as old as it is. You still got the vent tube. So, all right, I'm going to get to cleaning this up next. All right, so I'm cleaning this guy up here. You know, you could take your wire wheel and it works pretty quick, but it makes a lot of dust and a mess and whatnot. And this coating that's on here, it's kind of like a tarish, rubbery coating. And to be honest with you, it comes right off of the scraper. So I just been digging at here for about 30 seconds, and you know, I've done pretty decent of it. I think I spent about 10 minutes on here with the scraper, and then I'll follow up with this guy, and I'll just get this nice and clean, and then I'm gonna get it down to the bare metal. And then, and like I said, I'm gonna be welding around here, around the perimeter of this guy here. And then a little better light now. Not too bad in here, so I'll do the same thing, get it down to the bare metal, and then I'm gonna be priming this, which is your standard primer. I'll use weld through up here, and then standard primer through here, and then it'll get plug welded back onto the car. So let me go ahead and get this cleaned up, and then the next thing I'll do is I'm going to weld around here, and then I haven't decided if I'm going to perimeter weld this or if I'm going to plug weld it. This guy's not too bad. This guy over here got kind of beat up when I disassembled it, but we'll see. I might, as I said before, I might fill these holes and then just move them more towards the center here, so they have more metal to bite on in the frame rail. So get to it. All right, I got it mostly cleaned up here. It was a little harder than I thought it was going to be, but that's all right. It's a little late in the evening, so it's getting a little loud. I'm in a townhome, so I'm going to go ahead and just switch up what I'm doing here. So this is the pinion snubber, all right? For the Total Control Products 4-link rear suspension, they want you to weld around the perimeter of it. So looking down in there, it's kind of rusty and whatnot. So and then all that tar it's just caked a lot of underneath the lips here. When I'm going to try and weld it, it's going to contaminate the hell out of it. So I made the decision to go ahead and just pop this off. It's only 6 welds that hold it on. So there's one here, 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 and here, and then yeah. So here, 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 and then there's 2 up here. So I'm going to go ahead and just drill those out, and then I'm going to clean up underneath of it, get it nice and clean. And then I'll prime some spots on it, and then I'll get it nice and welded. And then I'm also, because of the horsepower I'm running, it's recommended that you weld in a plate up here. So what I'll do is, before I put the pinion snubber back on, I'll select some spots and just go ahead and drill all the way through here. And then once I get the pinion snubber back on, and then I'll put a plate up here, I'll fit it, and it'll come around the perimeter all through here. And then I'll weld it in a bunch of spots on the other side, and then I'll clean those welds up. And that'll just connect everything together and make it nice and strong. because of all the horsepower I plan to run. So I will do that with you guys, and yeah, let's get to it, get this off. Cool, took about 10 minutes, popped right off. So as you can see, I got some locating holes I put in here. There's the other guy right there. So this will actually go right back on like that. And then I'll use the self-tapping screws in these holes, and that'll relocate where it was originally. Pretty rusty, looks like some really old spider eggs here and there, probably from the 60s. And anyway, I'm gonna clean all this rust out here, get it primed up, and I don't have to worry about this layer of tar that I couldn't get out, which would have contaminated the weld. So cool, I'm gonna get to it. All right, cool, so we're all cleaned up, and we're getting ready to weld her. So just waiting on the weld through primer to dry up, and then I'm gonna set the piece on top. I'll flip this piece over, and then I'll screw the locating screws in, and then I'll mark on through these holes on the other side on here where to remove the weld through primer, and then that'll give me nice clean metal to weld to. Keep in mind, you know, weld through primer, will it weld through it? Yeah, but it's, in my experience, it's still not as pretty. And if it's not as pretty to me, I don't feel that it's as strong as it could be when it comes to MIG. I tried it with when I was testing around with TIG, and it just kills tungsten, and I ruined one of my gas lenses using it. So learned that the hard way, but I was testing it out. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get this welded on right now. Okay, so I just want to show you guys how well those screws did lining this back up. It's exactly back to where I measured it from. So I measured from here, right on this edge here with the tape, and I pulled this corner and got 20 inches. Did the same thing from here to here, I got 19 and 7/8, and it, right back where it was originally. So that's good. So it is ready to go for welding. So I'm gonna hit that, and then right there you can see, and then I'm going to, I was gonna TIG weld it, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and just use the MIG welder and go around it, just because again, I'm using that weld through primer, and there's weld through primer between these two pieces, and it just doesn't like welding with it. So just to keep it strong, I'm going to go ahead and use the MIG, and then I'm going to drill a hole here, 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 and here, and then one here, and then get a plate on the other side just to weld through the whole thing and just get it all tied together, and then it'll be extra strong for the new suspension. All right, I got it pretty decently cleaned up. Just a couple spots here and there I gotta finish up with, but I went ahead and started. I need to take a break from cleaning this thing up. It's actually a lot more work than I thought it was going to be, but whatever. It's going to turn out nice. Still got some repairs I got to do on it, and fix the lip from when I pulled it off. It's a little bit bent here and there, but nothing that a hammer and dolly can't fix. But anyway, so as you can see, I went ahead and I pre-drilled the holes. Those are 5/16 holes. Because remember the TCP Total Control Products 4-link suspension, they'd recommend, if you're going to have high horsepower, to bring a plate in back here. Actually, I don't know if they actually recommend that. I was watching a guy online talk about putting a plate in back here just to reinforce it. But so I think it's a good idea, and I got it out, so I may as well do it. This is just some old plate from a torque box I removed, and I cleaned it up and bent it to fit in here. As you can see, I got all the holes there to plug weld it into this piece. So I'll get it nice and hot to do that, and then that'll weld in place, and then I'll perimeter weld around it, and then that'll make that a lot stronger. And then I still got to stitch weld around here as well, which is recommended in the instructions. So yeah, I'm playing it safe. As I said, it's only going to have 600 horsepower, but I don't want to have to come back in and do all this work again. I've already got it out, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. All right, so I'm going to get that welded in. All right, so I got it plug welded back on from the holes I drilled. As you can see right through here, so a little warm from when I did it. See the spots in the back a little bit where they were. And then I TIG welded around the perimeter, just getting my practice on with that. Turned out one of my mini gas lenses, it was drawing air in, and I just could not figure out why my welds were were so crappy. When the arc was struck, it was just spittering and spattering, and so I did a little test bead right here, and I was like, all right, there's something wrong. So I went back to my old setup, and then it was just clean right up. So I got to figure out what's going on with that. But so anyway, and then you know, you can't. It's really hard to TIG weld with weld through primer, and I'm not a huge fan of weld through primer as it is. It's just when the weld hits it, it just spatters because I guess the nickel in it soaks into the weld. And even on the MIG, you know, as you can see, I have some spots right here that got jacked up, and then I had to go over a weld here after cleaning it up because it just spit and sputtered. But then, as you can see, some of the welds, they turned out pretty nice. But I removed the weld through primer as best I could. But I know when I put this piece on underneath of it, I did not remove. Sometimes I like to remove back like a 1/4 inch underneath in between pieces, so when I weld the perimeter, in this example, it doesn't soak in as much, and the weld stays pretty good. So all in all, I think it's pretty strong. It's definitely a lot stronger than it was, and it should do fine, especially with this upgrade in the plate underneath. It should do just fine with the horsepower plans that I have. And as you can see right here, I didn't weld. It's a little thin there, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait till I get the transition tunnel and this piece mated back together, and then I'll clean it up and run a bead into each other through here, and that'll just help make it even more strong. So happy with how it turned out. I do have a little more cleaning I gotta do on it, and then I gotta do the repairs on here and start fitting it back in the car, and then it should be good. So I'm gonna get to that. Okay, so just been playing around with this, trying to figure out how I was gonna get the panel up in place. From welding, it just warped just a little bit, which I expected. Nothing too major. These don't have a lot of pressure. What I did is, because it's really hard to go straight up into it without the jack popping off, so I found a good angle, and then I just tack welded this into place, and it's supporting the feet, and I'm able to get the scissor jacks in place to help just set this thing in where it needs to be. As you can see, I mean, that's pretty good. And for strength purposes, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug weld in these 3 spots, and then I'm gonna perimeter weld around it. And then I still got a gap, kind of hard to see here, camera kind of blocks light right there. It's really hard to work on this by myself, and I can't get anybody over to help me set this thing. However, I don't think that matters. I think the best way to get this set and get those tabs in where they need to be is when I take the transition pan itself out, I'll be able to get in from the top. So I'll be able to clean all that up, get those tabs touching the new rear frame rails, and it'll be good to go. And then just so everyone's tracking, I measured in between the two, right here on the frame rail, where the pin, or not the pinion snubber, but the bump stop is, right here to the same spot on the other side of the car, and I got 65.5 inches, which is what it's supposed to be. So that's good. And because I'm worried about the Total Control Products 4-link suspension fitting this thing correctly, and some of the guys online, they all have the same measurements, so I'm set there. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, and what I'm gonna do is I am not a fan of the weld through primer on anything, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna mark my spots here to clean up, and then, as I said before, I'm gonna come around here and clean all that so I can weld that into place as well, and I'll do the same thing on the other side of the car. And I'm just showing you, you know, where I'm going to be removing the weld through primer, but in all reality, I'm just going to go ahead and remove it all together with the whiz wheel on my die grinder, and just get it all off there so it doesn't affect the weld. So anyway, nice and cleaned up. It's looking pretty good, and I'm going to go ahead and get this thing welded on. All right, and it's in. So a couple of notes here. Putting these self-tapping screws in 3 spots. There's one here. There's one, kind of hard to see, right over there, and then another one up here. Really helped triangulate this thing back into position. So I'm really happy about that. Got it welded all the way around. I'm going to clean all the welds up later after I get the transition pan. This is going to be a 2-part. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on removing the transition pan at this time.